Good morning, 8th graders. Today we are going to get into the end of the Civil War. So, we're going to talk about some of the big battles and then how the war finally ends. So, let's talk about the Battle of Gettysburg. We've talked about it a little bit already. In the early part of the war, the Confederacy was doing really well. The South was winning a lot of battles. They were pretty successful. The North kept changing their leadership a lot. Different generals were taking over, and they could never really get a lot of traction. So Confederate General Robert E. Lee, he wants to defeat the Union on their own turf. He thinks if they have a big victory in the North, it will force the North to surrender. So that's where we kind of get into the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, the Battle of Gettysburg, interestingly enough, didn't start out intentionally as a battle. The South was actually there looking for shoes. Because the North was able to blockade the South and really stop any supplies from coming in, the South lacked a lot of things, and one of those was shoes. So Lee's army was actually around Gettysburg looking for shoes. They were not looking for a fight. But they do end up running into the Northern Army, and they end up having a 3-day battle at Gettysburg. So there's about 85,000 Union soldiers versus 75,000 Confederates. So very large groups of people. Like I said, the battle lasts for 3 days. And the human cost of this battle is extremely high. 7,500 Confederates are killed in Pickett's charge alone. So Pickett's charge, Pickett was the leader of the Confederates, and he charged this one particular area on the battlefield to try and break through, and almost 8,000 people were killed in that one offensive alone. The North does end up winning this, but the costs are extremely high. The South loses 28,000 men. The North lost 23,000. So it's crazy how many people are killed in these battles. And this is just one battle. This isn't the entire war. That's why the Civil War is the deadliest war that we have ever fought so far. So here are some pictures. This is from the National Park website. So you can go to Gettysburg today. So what these are is on the left, these are photographs that Matthew Brady took of the battlefield, and then what the area looks like today if you were to go to Gettysburg. So it's kind of neat. You can see that it still looks very similar. So let's talk about General Grant. So we already talked about this a little bit in our last PowerPoint. General Grant, remember, he was trying to make sure that the Mississippi River stayed under Union control. And the Battle of Vicksburg was the real important one for this because he ended up capturing that area, capturing the railroad centers, and keeping the Mississippi River safe for the Union. Basically what he did in Vicksburg is he surrounded the city and pretty much just starved them out. Nothing could go in or out, and eventually they had to give up and surrender. This was a big victory for Grant, and this is what makes Abraham Lincoln really see that he is an effective leader. So he ends up giving Grant command of all of the Union troops. So not only is Grant in charge of troops out west, but now he's in charge of all of the Union troops. Okay, so here is a photograph from the Battle of Vicksburg. So you can see just all the destruction on this hillside here next to this house. Just everything's destroyed and dug out, and it's definitely a very really tore that town apart. Okay, so now we're going to talk about General Sherman. He is my favorite of the Union generals. Okay, so General Sherman, his name is William Tecumseh Sherman. You might remember Tecumseh from previous chapters. He's named after the Native American leader. So he is going to lead the army into Georgia, and he's very famous in Georgia because he burned Atlanta to the ground. And General Sherman, he believes in a total war strategy. He doesn't believe in just, all right, I'm just going to attack this area where the military is. He believes in bringing the war to everybody including civilians. He doesn't really care. And he believes that you should not leave anything behind that your enemy could potentially use. So he's going to attack Atlanta because that's one of their big railroad centers. And along the way, and when he leaves Atlanta, he's pretty much going to burn whatever as he goes, he's going to burn everything to the ground. So he's going to burn homes, stores, crops, animals. He's going to tear up railroad tracks and bend the tracks so they can't be used because he doesn't want to leave anything behind that the South could potentially use. And it is a very brutal strategy. And it's certainly not fair to the innocent civilians who happen to live in the areas that he's going through. So just brings this wave of destruction through Georgia. And he's going to march from Atlanta to Savannah. Remember, Savannah is on the coast. And then Savannah is going to fall right before Christmas of 1864. So now he's burned Atlanta to the ground. He's taken Savannah. Savannah is one of their big port cities. So here's a picture of what it looked like after Sherman's army came through. So you can see just everything is destroyed. Okay, eventually, though, it is going to get to the point where the South is going to have to surrender. And you can see here on this slide just how different the two armies are. Lee, the Confederate army, this is the South. A lot of his army's starving. They're very ill-equipped. They don't have full uniforms. They're trapped at the Appomattox courthouse. Grant, he is the leader of the North. The Union troops are well fed. They're well supplied. They surround the Confederate troops at Appomattox, basically force them to surrender. So the war officially ends in April of 1865. There is going to be one more death we have to talk about. So Abraham Lincoln, unfortunately, did not live very long after the war was over. So Abraham Lincoln, as you all know, about 5 days after the war, he went to Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. to watch a play, and an actor, John Wilkes Booth, assassinated him. So he shot the president, jumped from the president's balcony onto the stage, very dramatically. I believe he said, "Sic semper tyrannis," which is ever the tyrant, and then he ran off. There was a big manhunt after that, and days later he was eventually killed. And many people that were part of the conspiracy to kill the president were tried and hanged as well. So, fortunately, Abraham Lincoln doesn't really get to see the results of all his leadership during the war because he's killed shortly after. But that is the end of the Civil War. Okay, so I want you to answer a couple questions on a Google document that I have attached to this. And then you turn that in on Thursday. Remember, Friday is a teacher planning day, so you get the day off. And then also Monday is Memorial Day. So you have Monday off as well. So enjoy your long weekend. Email me if you guys have any questions. And I hope you all are doing well. Bye, guys.